After independence, the Indian economy was primarily agricultural or rural in nature, with around 85% of the population living in rural areas and around 70% of the population engaged in agricultural activities. The governments of the day followed a predominantly socialist pattern of development, where everything was centrally planned and controlled. This post-independence economic period, from 1947 till 1991, is also referred to as the License Quota Permit Raj. India had just become independent from the British Raj, and the country promptly fell into the License Quota Permit Raj. Almost every type of activity would require some license or a permit. Before it was abolished in 1991, people were even required to have a license and pay an annual renewal fee to buy and use a normal radio or a normal TV. During the 1950s, people even needed a license to ride a bicycle. As far as the economy was concerned, almost all the important industries and the major sectors were either nationalized or reserved for PSUs. For example, all banks were nationalized, airlines were nationalized, and almost all large industries were public sector units. The private sector was severely restricted. To produce anything, you needed a license. If you got a license, there would be a production quota which would limit how many items you could produce. And even after you produced something, you needed various kinds of permits to sell your products. The public sector enterprises and the government companies were not especially efficient, and the private sector was restricted. So this era was also marked by recurring food shortages and scarcity of various items. Even though there was a shortage of various goods, you could not even import them legally because imports were also restricted. For example, in the 1970s and the 80s, the waiting period for a normal Bajaj scooter, which was already using outdated technology, was up to 10 years. The few major private companies and almost all the public sector companies enjoyed a protected status. They had no competition because new companies were not given a license at all. So the existing companies had no incentive to innovate or to make new products. They continued to sell their products without any competition. For example, in those days, a car in India meant an ambassador or a premier Padmini. And Hindustan Motors continued to make and sell the Ambassador from 1957 all the way till 2014. Till the late 1990s, they did not even bother to make any significant changes. They would just add a few minor accessories here and there and call it Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, etc. So during this period, India's economy either stayed flat for most years or it declined in some years.